you're there if you just let people in as they join, and we'll get started. Welcome to part two of the ATS Carmanah webinar series here. Today we are talking about the connected school zone beacons and signs. So my name is Steve Henderson. I'm Director of Business Development at ATS Traffic. My division is the ITS division, so I'm responsible for anything technology and then connected and related to data as well. And with me today is Jesse Fraser. Jess, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for your time this morning. My name is Jesse Fraser. I'm a business development manager here at Carmanah Technologies, and I work very closely with the ATS Traffic team on supplying our products kind of from Ontario West.
Okay. Thanks, Jesse. So everybody, just a little bit of background. ATS has been a Carmanah dealer for, I think, eight years now, Jess, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we're very excited about the new MX series, which has been in the market almost a year now, I think, is from when it was first released. And then we're excited today to be talking about the MX connected school zone beacons. I think everybody will get a lot of value out of this today. A little bit of housekeeping to start with. You'll see there is a Q&A button. You should be seeing it at the top of your screen. So if you have any questions, just drop them in there, and we will get to those and answer those all at the end as well. The meeting is also being recorded, and I think we're going to put that up on our YouTube channel later on for ease of sharing. So if you have colleagues that couldn't join, but you think will find some value, feel free to find that at our YouTube channel later on today. All right, just a little bit of background on ATS Traffic. Will be a little bit of review for those of you that were in part one of our webinar. But ATS has been around since 1966, so 57 years of experience. We now have 11 branches, over 8,000 plus customer accounts. We're one of the largest sign manufacturers in the country, generating over 1,000 signs a day. We're 15,000 SKUs. And we have over 650 staff on the team right now. I think in the peak of construction season, we top out close to 800. So ATS is a sizable operation nowadays. And then we have 68 sales and customer support staff throughout our branches to support you and your municipality's requirements. So our vision is getting people home safely every day. So we work with our customers to address their unique needs by researching, testing, adopting, providing traffic safety products and services to assist in delivering our primary mission. So our mission is to be the most trusted industry provider of traffic control products and services, supporting safer and more efficient roads and public infrastructure. ATS at our core, we consider ourselves a safety company. So safety is our first and foremost goal in everything we do. So a little bit about our distribution network. So as mentioned, we have 11 branches, all the way from Mississauga, all the way west into Surrey and Langley. And then we also just expanded down into the Pacific Northwest and now have an office in Tacoma as well. So we're lots of growth lately for ATS, which is very exciting for us. All right, so why ATS Traffic? With ATS, you have preferred pricing, strategic planning, the live reporting, KPI dashboards that we're able to do for you, custom signs, new dedicated sales and support team, 24-hour on-call support if required, lots of inventory in stock, and if we don't have stock, we probably have rentals available for you. And then we partner with key vendors in the industry, not the least of which is obviously Carmanah, Livable Cities, Cubic Transportation, Pexco, and Vermec, just to name a few. So we are also proud members of Canoe and Kinetic GPO. So through these procurement groups, you're able to get contract pricing and streamlined compliant procurement. So in many times it allows you to avoid the kind of cumbersome RFP process that many procurement departments have to go through, and then people having to go out and get multiple quotes, that sort of thing. If your municipality is a member of Canoe or Kinetic, we are the official traffic supplier through those procurement groups. So I would encourage you to speak to your procurement teams if you're not, and see if your municipality can get on board, because it certainly helps streamline procurement for you. Right. So one of the things, like I said, ATS is a safety company. So in order to do that, we help communities with their livable community solutions, including pedestrian safety, just like the Carmanah RFBs and school zone beacons, bike lanes and pathways with solar powered bollards and lighting, and then obviously traffic calming as well. That's we're big providers of radar signs, data collection devices, everything you need to calm the traffic in your community. Also, we're big supporters of sustainable solutions and solar powered solutions as well. So that's why we're excited to partner with companies like Carmanah, because we try to do our part to combat climate change. One of the things we're very proud of, and it's a relatively new innovation for us, is our online store. It's your one-stop traffic supply shop. So you can log on there, request an account be set up for you. And that's great for things like, signs, cones, the kind of consumables that your municipality needs. Makes it really easy to order those. And also in that store, we have a MX series build tools for Carmanah. So you can log on there and then build your Carmanah system. And then get a detailed quote sent to you based on what you've built there. So I recommend everybody kind of hop online and check out our online store after this webinar. So a little bit about IntelliTraffic. So IntelliTraffic is the ITS division of ATS Traffic. So obviously my division that I'm responsible for. So IntelliTraffic is involved in detection, data collection, cabinets, controllers, traffic signals, PED safety, access control, blank out LED signs, and solar lighting. So basically you're one stop for intersection detection, technology, signals, everything you need. Everything you need at your intersection is IntelliTraffic related, and we're happy to help and answer your questions. And one of the ways we're able to do that is through our recent acquisition of Interprovincial Traffic Services. So ITS is based out here in Surrey, BC, and we're excited to partner with them as of last September. And ITS has brought years of experience in the traffic industry to ATS, and we're very, very excited to be partnering with them. The team at ITS has lots and lots of years of experience, so we're happy to have them. So with that, Jesse, I will pass it over to you, and we can dive into the connected and school zone beacons.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. And thanks again, everybody, for joining in today. So part one kind of focused on the MX series as a whole, but today's presentation is going to be focusing on connected school zone beacons and signs specifically. So for those of you that didn't attend part one of the webinar, I thought I'd give a quick overview of Carmanah Technologies. We specialize in manufacturing compliant transportation safety solutions that improve safety at crosswalks, in school zones, on highways, and other types of roadways. Our systems are both solar and AC powered, and we've provided them to communities, militaries, and commercial facilities worldwide. We've been manufacturing these systems for over 25 years now, I think coming up on 30 actually. We're headquartered in Victoria, British Columbia, which is where I'm calling out of today. And then we do all of our manufacturing in the state of Texas. So Carmanah is actually a part of a larger organization called Synapse ITS, and we joined this company as of May of 2022. You might recognize a few of our sister brands here, whether that's Polera, a leading manufacturer of APS and ADA compliant push buttons, or Eberly Design or EDI, which manufactures critical safety components and sensors for intersections. And finally, there's also Diablo Controls, which serves the parking and access market. So all of us are a part of Synapse ITS. This slide here kind of gives an overview of the breadth of our product offering. So Carmanah focuses on pedestrian safety products, and we also have other types of systems like wrong-way driver systems, flashing beacon systems, and LED enhanced signs for a wide range of applications, as well as some systems for rural roadway applications as well. Polera, as I said, is all about accessible pedestrian signals, whether that's at the intersection with their INS push button or in mid-block working alongside our RFBs with the INX push button. And EDI makes all sorts of important things that go in the traffic cabinet at the intersection, like conflict monitors, load switches and flashers, and loop detectors. All right, so now let's dive into the presentation a little bit more. So we got a lot to cover this morning. We're going to start by just giving an overview of our MX platform for those of you that couldn't make the first part of the webinar series. Then I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into a specific model number, which is our R829MX connected school zone beacons. Then I'll talk a little bit about when to choose solar versus AC powered systems. That's a pretty common question that comes up. Then I'll dive into the connectivity side of the system. So I'm going to talk about MX Cloud, which is our web-based software for remotely programming and monitoring your systems, as well as the local Bluetooth field app. Lastly, I'm going to show you an example of a real R829MX installation and what that looks like in MX Cloud, and this one's in Arlington, Texas. All right. So starting with the MX platform, consists of a few different types of products. This is our whole product portfolio here. We have crosswalk beacons and signs, wrong-way driver systems, as I mentioned, school zone beacons and signs, 24-hour flashing beacons or LED enhanced signs. We have our fire hall and emergency beacons and our speed check displays. When it comes to the MX connectivity, it's currently rolled out to the systems that are highlighted in pink. And again, today we're going to focus on the school zone side of things. But if you do have any questions about the other systems, please reach out to the team at ATS or at Carmanah. We'd be happy to provide you with some more information. So the MX series is our new generation of flashing beacon systems. Our prior generation, you might notice on some of the model numbers, there's E, F, or G associated with them. That's the prior generation. And so we've kind of built upon the success of that generation and added more features and more functionality to offer value to those that are installing these and maintaining these systems over time. So the MX series is Carmanah's new portfolio of beacons and signs with free embedded connectivity with every single system. And by that, I mean that every system that comes from our factory comes with a cell modem and SIM card installed inside of the system, and you get 3 years of free connectivity to try the system out. It's a bit similar to getting a new car with Sirius XM radio. You have it there, you can try it out. If you like it, you can add more features or extend your subscription. But if it's not for you, then there's still kind of the base functionality with the MX Field app to connect to these systems as well. Essentially, we've tried to design this to be the simplest and most affordable way to remotely monitor, control, and gather data from your traffic safety assets. These systems also have a modular design, which allows for not only additional configuration options, but it allows you to kind of scale up the system over time. For instance, if you had a 24-hour flashing beacon above a stop sign that's flashing all the time, but you want to add more conspicuity to that system, you might add an LED enhanced sign in the future. With the MX series, the systems consist of smart modules, so it's as easy as just adding a wire to the power module and pulling it down to the LED enhanced sign, and the system will start operating as it should. This modular design also allows us to have very, very quick lead times. In terms of a standard crosswalk, we can essentially manufacture the equipment within about a week. That doesn't include shipping, obviously, but it's very, very fast in terms of getting equipment to site. And we're leveraging technology to improve the user experience. In the past, you used to have to use an onboard user interface in our cabinets or in our solar engines to configure these systems. Usually that meant you had a ladder or bucket truck to get up into the systems. We've removed that need now, and essentially you can connect to the system either through the MX Cloud platform or wirelessly through Bluetooth. So there's no need to climb a ladder or go in a bucket truck to go program these systems. And we have these systems for a variety of different applications, kind of our flagship applications, our crosswalk, school zones, and warning applications. Um, but we have, like I said, wrong way driver systems, intersection conflict warning systems, and other types of applications. So please reach out if you do have any questions about the systems in a certain application. And we've already deployed hundreds of these systems throughout North America, including Canada. So how do these systems work when it comes to the smart modules and the connectivity? Well, essentially, you'll assemble your MX smart modules in any configuration on the pole. And so by that, I mean the power module, which is essentially the solar engine that's on the system, or the AC cabinet. You'll have your flasher module, which will be an RRFB light bar or a 12-inch yellow LED. And all of these systems actually have boards built into them and intelligence built into them, so they know exactly what they're supposed to do out of the box. They know what flash pattern is compliant. They know what light intensity is compliant. So it takes away that need to configure things at site for hours and hours. You basically apply power and it's ready to go. When you do apply power to the configured system, the system automatically connects up into the MX Cloud platform, which is through cellular. It also connects down locally through the MX Field app, which is through Bluetooth. And then it uses 2.4 gigahertz radio to communicate to other MX systems that might be nearby. So in the case of a crosswalk, it'll search for one across the street and try to pair to that. You can change it to a unique radio frequency if you'd like. There's essentially an unlimited amount of different radio channels to choose from. So you can kind of find which one works and ensure that nearby crosswalks aren't interfering with each other. Just to go over the model names quickly here, we have the R920MX, which is our crosswalk beacon, whether it has an RRFB or a 12-inch yellow LED or an LED enhanced sign. We're referring to that model and that application as R920MX. The purposes of today's webinar is for the R829MX, which is our school zone beacon. So this is a scheduled beacon for 24-hour applications. Same with intersection conflict warning systems. We have the R247MX. For wrong way driver applications, we have the WWD-MX. And lastly, we have our newly launched Chevron MX. And so this is a radar activated Chevron sign that's LED enhanced. And there's a variety of different configurations that are available with these systems as well. Now I want to dive a little bit deeper into the R829MX specifically. So what makes MX a game changer when it comes to school zone beacons? Well, I'd mentioned that every MX system has embedded connectivity from our factory. What that means is that you don't need to worry about providing SIM cards. You don't need to integrate any modem boxes into the system from third parties that maybe weren't designed to work specifically with school zone beacons. And there's no integration kits. You don't need to wire anything up at site. It's very compact, very easy to install. What I think is very exciting about the MX series is that an MX school zone beacon is around $1,000 less than a typical add-on solution. And this is compared to what we used to offer in the past. It used to be much more expensive. Like I said, some off-the-shelf components like time clocks aren't necessarily built for solar applications. They use a lot of power. What that means is you're paying more for the modem. You're usually needing a larger solar panel and battery, and that all adds to the cost in the end. So now we have cheap connected school zone beacons available. Just to give you an idea of what this looks like in comparison, if you are familiar with using, old time clocks or third-party cell modems inside of systems, you'll notice when you open up the solar engine or the cabinet, it takes up a big footprint inside of it. With the MX series, it's a little bit different. So this is inside the MX100 power module. This is a 15 watt, 14 amp hour battery capacity solar engine, pretty similar to what we had with the R920E, for example, or the R829E in the past. So just pointing out a few things here. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and I could talk about all this for a while, but just pointing out some of the connectivity features here. Kind of section A there is a pairing button for the MX Field app. So when you do initially install the system, you hit that button and you pair to the system through your phone like you would a Bluetooth speaker. It's very, very straightforward. So that's where that is. And then we have our small, low power embedded modem. So there's no additional modem box needed inside, no wiring of third-party devices. It takes up a small footprint inside of the engine, so everything can be compact and lend itself to a really nice looking streetscape, in my opinion. The low power consumption of this modem also means that we can use smaller power modules and fewer batteries with the same performance. So when it comes to the R829MX, I just wanted to give a little bit more context as to what it does and what it looks like. So pretty much anything that's going into a school zone and is going to be scheduled is going to be called an R829MX on our website or through our data sheets. And you'll see different things like the power modules associated with it, whether it's a solar engine or a cabinet. Those are essentially just tacking on to the R829MX system. The way I like to think about it is kind of like vehicles. You can get a Chevy Silverado 1500 or a Chevy Silverado 2500. It's still a Silverado. You're just changing basically the power that's associated with it. So in the case of the R829MX, you might see that with an MX100 power module or an MX300 power module, for example. So with the R829MX, you basically schedule these beacons when you need them to flash throughout the day. And the idea here is to calm traffic and reduce speeds. And you can schedule these systems either through the MX Field app, which is the local Bluetooth app, or MX Cloud, which is the cell-connected web-based platform. There's no need for USB cables that ultimately get lost year over year. There's no need to integrate third-party time clocks or anything of that nature. It's very, very straightforward. You can use flashing yellow circular beacons with these systems. We have a couple of sizes available. You can use LED enhanced signs. And again, we have different sizes available, different sheeting types for those systems, whether you want high intensity prismatic or diamond grade sheeting. We offer it all. In the case of Canada, typically we see fluorescent yellow-green signs used in school zones. And these systems can be designed in a way that meets MUTCDC standards. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the following slide here. So every province kind of has its own standards when it comes to school zone beacons, but starting kind of from the federal level, I looked at, what does TAC say about school zone beacons? They have some different signage requirements. For a school crosswalk, they have the RA3 sign, which is in the top left there. There's the school crosswalk ahead sign, which is the WC-16R sign. And then you have your school area sign, which is the WC-1. So in the case of Carmanah products, you might have rectangular rapid flashing beacons like the R920MX with the RA3 sign. And then you would have the R829MX with the WC-1. What was interesting reading through TAC is that they kind of define a school area and a school zone a little bit different. So a school area is an area where you still want to warn people that they're in a school zone, school area, but there's no regulatory speed reduction within a school area. On the other hand, with a school zone, there's actually a regulatory speed reduction. You're going to want to emphasize that to the people that are entering the school zone. Whether you're doing the school area signage or the school zone signage, you want to accompany both of these signs with the RB-1 maximum speed sign. So this is just the standard speed sign that you see across Canada. What's also interesting is that TAC says that, if you're close to the border or somewhere where, people from the USA might be coming into Canada, then you might want to add in that kilometer per hour plaque as well, just to remind people which units they're looking at here. And as I mentioned before, the requirements change from province to province. The way school zones look in Alberta versus Ontario are slightly different. Some people choose to follow exactly what TAC recommends. Other ministries of transportation choose their own signage. And so in this slide here, over to the right, is an example of what a school zone beacon might look like in Ontario. And what you'll notice here is that the beacons are actually on the sides of the sign, and the signage itself is quite different than what was shown in the prior slide. This isn't really a hurdle for us. The R829MX can accommodate any provincial requirements. Carmanah doesn't typically provide static signs, but I'm sure ATS can help you with those needs. In terms of LED enhanced signs, typically if it's a standard shape or size, we can generally LED enhance those signs. And so, we can provide different mounting hardware if you do want to do the kind of dual horizontal mounting here. We can change operating times. In some provinces, you'll see them run for 8 hours a day. in Alberta, for example, which is my home province, you'll see them running for much longer than that, 14 hours a day, for example. It will kind of impact how big the solar panel and batteries are with those systems, but we have tools to kind of help you with that, and I'll be talking about those in the subsequent slides here. As I mentioned before, when it comes to school zones, there's a few different types of products that you can implement, not only the R829MX systems. So if you have mid-block crosswalks, you can use the R920MX, which is the rectangular rapid flashing beacon system. There's the school bus entrance sign, for example. You might want another R829MX system with that and schedule it for the same time as the school zone beacons come on. If you have a playground warning, sometimes what we'll see is people will install the R247MX. Typically, it flashes 24 hours a day. However, there are other settings like dusk till dawn if you wanted to do it that way, or other types of settings that you can put into the system to kind of make sure it's flashing when you want more emphasis on that warning signage or regulatory signage that you're using. Lastly, we have traffic calming. So there's the speed check 12 or 15. We have an 18-inch sign as well, but typically for school zones, you'll see lower speed limits, around 30 kilometers an hour. So the speed check 12, which is our 12-inch display, or our speed check 15 would probably be the best bets for that. So once you figure out what type of R829MX configuration you want, you might be considering, do I want to choose solar for this site, or do I want to choose an AC powered system? And so there's a few different factors to consider when it comes to choosing solar versus AC in a school zone. First, you're going to want to look at the system configuration overall. So how many beacons are there per pole? Is it two 12-inch yellow LEDs or one LED enhanced sign? Is it a combination of both? That does matter. It kind of determines what the load is on the system. We'll also want to look at the size of the LEDs, so whether they're 8-inch LEDs or 12-inch LEDs, and what the intensity of those LEDs are. Out of the box, the systems will be flashing at ITE intensity. Sometimes people choose to dim those down to make the systems more sustainable, or they have their own standards. Sometimes they increase the intensity, which is the case in sunny places like Florida, where they want even brighter lights than ITE intensity to compete with the ambient light conditions. There's also the operational requirements for the systems. So in the case of a school zone beacon, you generally want to consider how many hours a day is it flashing and how many days per week. Uh, it might change throughout the year, summer break, for example, or even the last week of school if you have kind of a half day on the last week for the whole week, then you might want to program that into the systems. However, generally you want to understand like what's the 80/20 rule here? How often is it going to be operating? Then I would also say you'd want to consider whether there's AC at the pole or not. If there is, generally speaking, it makes the most sense to go with AC. You're going to buy less equipment. You already have power on the pole. You connect everything up. It's easy. I would say in most cases, especially when it comes to school zone beacons, they're kind of on the outside perimeter of the school zone, and they're not usually near AC power. So it's really, really expensive to trench power to those poles, in which case we start looking at things like solar. What's nice about the MX series is that we have over triple the amount of combinations that we had with our prior generation in terms of what size of power module you can have with the system. So our solar panels range from 15 watts up to 170 watts, and our battery capacity ranges from 7 amp hours up to 100 amp hours. So our ability to deploy solar increases quite a bit when it comes to the MX series. And lastly, when you're looking at a site and trying to determine whether solar is going to be a fit or whether you need to go with AC, you want to look at the direct sunlight available. So if there's any obstructions to the south, whether it's trees or buildings or anything of that nature, you're going to want to see how those impact a solar panel. One thing to consider as well is maybe what that particular location might look like in the future. So, for example, I've worked on projects where they start with a small compact solar engine, but then there's a condo built directly to the south, and that creates a ton of shading on the system, and impacts performance. So ideally, you would kind of consider that or know about that ahead of time. That's not always possible, obviously. What's nice about the MX series is that if you do need to size the system up in the future to meet kind of harsher uh, requirements in the area, then it's very, very easy with the MX series because of its modular design to just add on a larger solar power module to that system. Now, there are two ways that you can kind of figure out what size of solar panel and battery to work with the system. The first is our online build tool. You'll see these on Carmanah's website. Most product pages have a build an R829MX button or build a SpeedCheck 12 button. And so you'll see that it'll direct you to this build tool. ATS Traffic also has build tools integrated onto their website. So if you want to go check it out there, I'd definitely recommend it. What's nice about the build tools is they actually allow you to build your preferred system online and choose the exact system that you need. So you'll see in the screenshot here over to the right, you have a few different options in terms of flasher module type and beacon configurations and even color options for the system. And so you can go through this build tool here and choose exactly what you need. And then in real time over to the right there, you'll actually see the configuration that you're building. So it's kind of an extra verification that you're going to get what you want. After you build the system configuration, it moves over to kind of a solar simulation tool. It'll ask you first whether you want solar or AC. But if you do want solar, basically you can put in your location. It can be something vague like the city of Victoria, or you can put an exact address and it'll drop a pin exactly where the system's going. And what it does is it applies a weather database that's about 22 years worth of weather data to the system. And then it takes into account all of those factors that I mentioned in the prior slide in terms of system configuration. There's a general runtime that's used in the online build tool. It's a little bit more high level, but then it applies a general shader rating as well to the system to add a little bit of a buffer of safety there. And so at the very end, it'll actually email you a custom data sheet for the system. It'll say exactly which model you selected, what power module is associated with it. So whether it's the MX100 compact power module or maybe a larger MX400 cabinet-based system, it'll show that there. All the different color options that you chose with the system. So whether you want a yellow signal head or a black signal head, it'll all be on there. And what's really nice about it is you can put your actual project name in that PDF document so that you can save it. It'll give you a customized data sheet through email as well if you don't download it directly from the website. And then you can actually go to the team at ATS and say, here's the system that I'm looking at. I've had it sized out, and this is the exact configuration that I need. And so what's really nice about that is you kind of know exactly what you want to communicate to ATS in terms of, getting budgetary pricing. It's extremely quick because you don't need to have all that back and forth about configuration options or mounting hardware or any of that. It's all contained within this document. So it's a very powerful tool. I'd recommend checking it out. And it's free online to use whenever you want to use it. So if you're doing one site or 10 sites, it's available. If you don't want to do a high level simulation like that, and you're concerned about either shading at the site, you find that you are looking at a longer runtime on the system. So rather than, 4 hours a day, you might want 14 hours a day. Then the build tool might not be the best route for you. It is meant to be kind of a higher level assessment tool. So what I would recommend in that instance is to reach out to either the team at ATS, whoever your representative is there, or Carmanah Technologies, and we'd be happy to provide you with what we call solar power reports. And these are actually site-specific reports that simulate the systems for exactly where they're installed, the exact hours of operation and days per week that they're flashing, and the flasher modules that are associated with them. And similar to the build tool, this is sized for the worst annual conditions for solar throughout the year. And so sometimes, especially in Canada, I get a lot of questions. On the reports, we show kind of a minimum temperature, and people say, it gets way colder than that throughout the year. I think your report's wrong. And the difference is that the minimum temperature is actually the minimum temperature in the worst month for solar. So the least amount of peak sun hours that's available for the system to operate. So it might show -10 on the report when actually you experience down to -30 in January or February. So it's a common thing that comes up, but really sunlight is what matters most to us. We use AGM lead acid batteries in our systems, and they work down until about -40 degrees Celsius. So we haven't had issues with those operating in Canada. We have tons of systems deployed from coast to coast, but just something to keep in mind if you do see one of these reports. Here's the front page of what the solar power report looks like. So it's a little bit more detailed, a little bit more engineering focused, I would say. You'll see a sample image of the system. It won't be the exact configuration, but it will tell you how it's running, what intensity the lights are at, and some various metrics about the system's performance. So the array to load ratio or the system autonomy, for example, will all be on this front page here. On the second page, you'll actually see a screenshot of where the system's exactly going to be installed. Sometimes we're limited to what the Google car has seen. So sometimes the images are quite old or you just don't get street view. So that does happen from time to time, but we try to do our best to assess it as accurately as possible when we do have those limitations. But we apply a shader rating to every single month. So often what you'll see is similar to these two charts in the bottom there. Performance actually gets better, obviously, in the spring and summer when there's more sunlight available. And then things like hours of flashing per day, or in the case of crosswalks, number of daily activations, those things start to taper off a little bit more when you get down into the fall and winter months. So it's very, very detailed. The following pages of the report will give you a full calculation path on how we got to all the numbers that we arrived at. And there's a glossary there. There's a lot of terms in these reports. You might not be as familiar with solar terminology. So if you want to brush up on your skills, you just look at page 4 of the report and it'll tell you a little bit more information. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the MX Cloud and MX Field app. As I discussed earlier, MX Cloud is our web-based software that aggregates all the data from your MX assets and centralizes control for them online. This allows you to access and download data from your systems that are deployed throughout your city or town, whether it's school zone beacons, RRFBs, wrong way driver systems. If it's an MX system, it'll report up into MX Cloud. And as I mentioned, it comes free with every system for 3 years if you want to try it out. It allows you to program beacons. So if you want to change the flash duration on an RRFB, you can do that. You can schedule beacons as well with the right subscription plan. And it gives you security and control for different types of users. And I'll talk about this in a following slide here, but you can set administrators for the account, operators, field techs, and observers. And as I had mentioned, it comes for free for 3 years. So even better. There's a couple features I want to highlight. I think we could have a whole webinar for an hour on MX Cloud and all its functionality. But I wanted to highlight 2 specific ones that I think pertain to school zone beacon systems. And before we wrap up today, I will show you what the software looks like. I'll go in there and show you a real life example. As I mentioned, there's programming and scheduling with the system, so you can adjust settings like flash duration, nighttime dimming of LEDs. If you have overhead lighting at a crosswalk, you can control how that comes on at nighttime. And there's other types of settings that you can change remotely as well. For school zone beacons, scheduling is obviously a very important part. So over to the right, you'll see a screenshot of what our scheduling feature looks like in MX Cloud. It's very, very intuitive to use. Essentially, it's a Saturday to Sunday schedule. There's a little drop-down arrow, and you just write in the times that you want the beacons to come on, and it's going to populate those teal bars for each day. And you have created a schedule. It is really that easy. So you can create a unique name for that schedule if you do have different school districts that you're trying to control that have different operating times. Then you can create those, which is kind of that list over to the left there. If you want to edit schedules, set them, it's all done through this interface. And then in terms of assigning schedules to the systems, you can assign them to one system, you can assign them to multiple systems at a time. It's really quite easy. They're just little boxes that you tick and you're good to go. One thing I should mention too is you can program things like snow days in here. There's a little snowflake icon. You can click on that and it'll basically just override the schedule and turn the beacons off if there's no school that day. And you can create exceptions in there. So as I mentioned before, if you have the last week of school and it's all half days, you can basically create an exception schedule and apply that to your standard schedule as well. So for any holidays and things like that, you can kind of add those in. But it's very, very easy to use, very easy to learn. In addition to that, I wanted to highlight user management. I think this is a really valuable feature within the MX Cloud. So kind of having God mode in the MX Cloud is being MX admin. And so basically, this is the highest level of account authority with the system. You can add and remove users, you can control the systems, you can upload schedules, you can do whatever you want. So what I typically see is that city staff might be MX operators or administrators. So whereas an administrator kind of has all the functionality and can add and remove users from the MX Cloud platform, operators can still change system settings. So they can change schedules, for example, but they can't add and remove users from the MX Cloud platform. For contractors that are installing the systems, you might want to give them access at site to power up the systems, maybe upload the initial schedule or run some diagnostics on the system. They could be set as MX field technicians. So essentially, you're giving them permission to have access to the system out at site. What's nice about MX Cloud is that you can actually have enhanced security features. So you can lock out the systems after the system's been installed and commissioned. If you don't want that contractor going in and having access to that system anymore, you can go into MX Cloud, you hit a little lock icon, and they're not going to be able to pair to it until you basically let them into that system again. If you wanted somebody like ATS Traffic to also view your systems, but not have any access to change the systems or add or remove users, it's basically a read-only version. Then we have MX Observer. So what they could do is still receive text and email alerts from the platform in the event of something like a knockdown or a dead battery. And they could give you a call and say, hey, we noticed that this particular R829MX system has low voltage. I think you need a new battery. And then you guys can kind of work to troubleshoot the system and get parts ordered as quick as possible to get the system up and running. Now, I want to go over quickly the MX subscriptions. To access the MX Cloud, there are several subscription options. But I want to emphasize you don't need to use MX Cloud. The MX Field app, which is the local mobile app, is always included and offers local functionality. And I'm going to talk about that in a few slides here. The MX Cloud does have a lot of features and you only pay for what you need. And if you want to try it out for free for 3 years, you can certainly do that. In terms of the functionality, the first tier is called MX Lite. This is what everybody gets for the first 3 years. Basically, it's an asset management level for the MX software. You get to control the users within the platform. You have that enhanced security feature, and you'll get things like system status and health and over-the-air updates and text and email alerts on the system. Moving up from there, we have a paid plan, which is MX Plus, and you get some more features in this paid plan. So you get all the features of MX Lite, but you get data charting, knockdown alerts. So if the system gets knocked down or tilts past 30 degrees, you'll get an alert for that. And you get remote programming. And so by this is basically for crosswalks. If you want to change flash duration or anything like that, you do this through MX Plus. The final tier is MX Pro, and this is essentially the school zone beacon tier. This is also a paid subscription to the system, and you get all the features that MX Cloud has to offer. So everything in MX Lite and MX Plus, and then you also get the ability to export 5 years worth of data from the systems, and you will get remote scheduling capabilities as well. So that's actually uploading those school zone schedules to the systems remotely. If you don't want to use that, there is the MX Field app, which is a best-in-class interface to connect, configure, and troubleshoot the systems in the field. So basically, there's this local Bluetooth connection that I discussed earlier to the MX smart modules, and then it communicates down into your smartphone or mobile device. It allows you to program, schedule, and do advanced diagnostics on the systems, and you can access the system settings without a bucket truck. So essentially, instead of going up in the bucket truck and toggling through, a 3-button interface, you have a smarter interface on your phone. In the case of school zone beacons, you don't need to stand out there with a laptop connected to USB. You can pair to the system through Bluetooth, sit in your truck, and then make a schedule that way. So much easier, much more convenient, and it's completely free. Anybody can download it. It's available on Android and iOS. So as long as your device has one of those operating platforms, you can connect to the system and create your account. I just wanted to give you a good idea of how the system works. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I think this is a good slide that kind of encapsulates the gist of it. So the systems work out of the box, but the MX Field app should be used when default factory settings need to be adjusted. So again, when you power up an R829 MX system, it's going to know what flash pattern is compliant. It's going to know what the LED intensity is supposed to be for that particular system, but you might want to change it. Also, the system will flash 24 hours a day once you power it up, so you will ultimately need to apply a schedule to an R829 system. So you'll want to pair to the app. Essentially, you download the MX Field app onto your phone and create a user profile. It's really, really, really quick. It only takes a few seconds to do um, once the app's downloaded. Then you basically open up your MX power module and move your phone close to the pairing button while you press it. So again, it's like any other Bluetooth device that you might have in your house, like a speaker. You hold the pairing button, it'll show up in a list on your phone. You select it, and essentially you're connected to the system. You'll receive a digital key that will be passed to your user profile for that MX system. And this key also allows you to access the system quickly in the future from the ground. So initially, when you're installing the system, you will have to hit the pairing button, pardon me. But in the future, in a year from then, if you want to upload a schedule, you can just drive to the system again and connect to it without having to hit that pairing button again, because your phone's already going to be paired to it. Now, if you don't want somebody to access it in the future, you can control it through MX Cloud and lock people out through that enhanced security feature. So when it comes to an R829 MX system itself, as I mentioned, it'll flash 24/7 out of the box. You'll essentially want to connect to the system with the MX Field app. You enable schedule mode within the application to turn off the 24-hour operation. Then you're going to build and upload a schedule to the system now, or you can do it later. And then you can do it either through the app or MX Cloud. So you don't necessarily have to build it right when you're there. You can build it sitting in your office or a coffee shop and then go out to the system and connect to it as well. And then the MX system, once you upload that schedule, will operate based on that particular schedule. And so it won't flash until the schedule actually permits it. Okay, so let's look at a real life example. So this one is in the United States, and it's in Arlington, Texas at Arlington Classics Academy. But I think it's a great example of how the systems work and what they look like in MX Cloud. And we have received permission to go into this account and show it off to other people that are interested in the R829 MX system. So here's a screenshot of what the system looked before. So this is a Google Street View from 2017. This is actually an old Carmanah system. This is our second generation of beacons, so quite a long time ago. It has a single beacon, and the beacons were programmed with PC software. So it was a laptop that you had to run software on and upload schedules with. And then there was a variety of different cables that you had to connect. I think there's 3 different cables in this system that you'd have to interconnect to one another, eventually leading down to USB, and that would connect into the laptop. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people call me every year because they misplaced those. So with the MX series, it makes it so much easier because everybody has a smartphone or a tablet, something with Bluetooth in it to connect to the beacons, and so you don't need to worry about those things anymore, or no one specific piece of hardware to connect to the systems. Moving forward to December 2024, you'll see that this is actually an R829 MX system with our MX 200 power module on the pole. So in this case, it has a 30-watt panel and 18 amp hour battery capacity. What's interesting about this one is they actually turned one of the beacons around to add like a confirmation beacon to aid law enforcement. So what they'll normally do is sit in the middle of the school zone and kind of look to see that the beacon is flashing, and it lets them know that if somebody's speeding past that, the system's operating and working, and somebody can't kind of argue that it wasn't. They reused the existing 2 7/8 inch pole for that system. So they reused that. It stood the test of time. And the beacons are programmed remotely with the MX Cloud software. And so I think this is a really great quote. They said, the new MX school zone beacons are working great. We programmed for the year. Now we don't need to worry about them until or if we get an alert. They were so simple to set up. The only challenging part was working with the old pole. So that's a great testimonial there. I'm very happy that they're happy with their systems. And I think this calls for us going into MX Cloud and actually taking a look at the systems themselves and what that looks like when you're in there. So let me pull up in my screen here. Okay, so here's the systems that were installed through Arlington Classics Academy. And this is kind of the dashboard for MX Cloud. So you'll see this here. You have your systems listed in a row here. There's also another header called link systems. And this is where something like crosswalk systems would show up. You'd see two systems linked together, so you know they're at the same crosswalk. You'll see the system status here. And if you're unsure what the different colors mean, you just hover over these question marks and it'll provide a little bit more context on those systems. You'll see the subscription level, how they're operating. So whether it's dusk till dawn, scheduled, or one of the other operating modes that we offer, you can see that there through these little icons. And this is the local access that I mentioned earlier. So you can basically unlock and lock access to the systems through MX Cloud. You will get a view here of what the systems look like. It's a Google API in terms of their maps. And so you can zoom out if you want, you can zoom in, and you're basically going to see any systems that were moved into your MX Cloud account, which can be done when you submit a purchase order and the systems get processed in our system. You'll see you can hover over them, and as you hover over them, over in the list to the left there, you'll see it actually highlights that particular system. The systems will come with generic names that are based on the serial number, but you can change them. I'd recommend changing them to something that's unique and kind of easier to understand where the system is located. Really quickly here, I will show you what the schedules tab looks like for this. And so this is their schedule that they have where it's operating. It looks like about 3 hours a day. And then they have the different systems here that you can assign the schedule to. They also have an exception in here for when they don't want the beacon to run. Okay, so going back to the dashboard here, what I really wanted to highlight is what it looks like when you go into an actual system. So let's start with this one here, which is West Arkansas Lane, eastbound. And you'll see the serial numbers here too. So if you do need to make a warranty claim or you have questions about the system in terms of configurations, it's right here and easy to communicate to ATS or the Carmanah team. So when you go into an actual system, this is what it looks like. You'll actually see that there's 3 connected modules to this system, including the power module and 2 beacons. Because these systems are modular, each module actually has a serial number associated with it. This is where alerts will show up. So if there's a low battery, you can see it in here. There's also charts showing the system's performance over time. When it comes to the battery voltage, this is what you'll see when you have MX Pro, which is the paid scheduling function. And you can actually change how this looks. So if you want to change it to 30 days for the duration and the resolution to be 7 days, it'll basically update that. So lots of functionality there. You can get system information. This is a lot of jargon, but it's good to know if we are trying to troubleshoot a system. There's also an event log. So if you do want to see what's been changed with the system, you can see exactly who did it, what day they did it on, at what time, which I think is very useful, especially when it comes to school zone beacons. And lastly, there's some settings here in terms of how it's supposed to operate. Lastly, if you do want to see the system, you can go here, grab the little yellow man and drop him down to Street View. And luckily, this Google Street Car has been through here recently. And so you'll see the pin drops there. And then you have your R829 MX system fully installed. And what's interesting about this site is you'll look to the south here and there's a tree and power lines and a pole, all things that create shading and aren't ideal. And so when this system was installed, we tried to do a solar power report to kind of ensure how it was going to perform. But what's really nice is looking back at those charts for the solar panel and battery voltages, we can actually monitor that system and make sure it's being sustainable and that our simulating tools were actually correct initially. So pretty great, but that's a general overview. If you do want a deeper dive into the MX Cloud platform, please let ATS or me know, and I'd be happy to help you guys out with learning a little bit more about that. Can we go back to the slide deck, please? Perfect. Okay. So that's the gist of the presentation today. But I just wanted to highlight some resources that are available on our website. So if you want to look at videos of the systems, data sheets, purchase specifications, or CAD, those are available. You can request them on carmanah.com. There's other resources like case studies on there. If you want to take a look at MX Cloud, there's mxcloud.live, which is where you access that. And you can connect with our team for more specific information through traffic at carmanah.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse, for all that. I hope everybody found that content valuable. So we have a few minutes left and a few questions to go through. So quickly, Jason had asked, do we provide IMSA hours for that? So I quickly made a couple phone calls in the background here. And yeah, what we can do, Jason, is send a certificate saying you completed an hour of professional development. So we'll do that for everybody who attended part one and part two. So 2 hours worth of professional development, and you can submit that to your local IMSA for credit for development hours. So Jesse, Abel asked if we're adding overhead lighting, do we need larger battery and solar panel? I'm going to say that is going to be site dependent, but generally speaking, yes.
Yeah, I would say, especially when it comes to school zone beacons, it's not as common, but with RFBs, we see a lot of people adding overhead lighting. It's important to keep in mind that it only comes on at nighttime and it's only on for the same amount of time as the light bar is, so 20 seconds, for example. So the overall load on the system when you add overhead lighting usually isn't substantial. So in a lot of cases, we can actually keep the system size the same. But yeah, Steve's right, it is dependent on kind of where it's installed.
Thanks, Jess. All right. And then Charles asked if one unit within a system needs to be replaced and is replaced with an MX unit, will it communicate with the other units within the system and be able to communicate changes? So I'm assuming Charles is asking if he's got an existing Gen 3 system and replaces it with an MX.
Yeah, so the MX system is pretty different than the prior generation. We had the Gen 3 system, so the EF and G models for, I think, over 10 years. It was a long time that we were manufacturing them. And it was, we wanted to take a pretty big leap forward in terms of connectivity and modularity. And in order to do that, we had to design the systems fairly differently than in the past. So unfortunately, you can't mix and match models between those two generations.
Okay, and then the last question we have here is what communication protocol does MX Cloud use? Does it depend on cellular coverage?
Yeah, that's a good question. I should have touched on that a little bit more. It uses LTE-M to communicate. And, people, I guess, get concerned sometimes that it's going to change from something like 3G to 4G. We design the systems using LTE-M because there's a surety in it being around for over 10 years, essentially. And so there shouldn't be any concerns there. We provide the SIM cards with the systems, and it's actually not connected to any one particular supplier, whether it's Rogers or Bell. It looks for actually the strongest signal in the area, and that's what the system connects to.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. All right, I don't see any more questions, and it is 9:59. So good job on the timing, Jess. Well done.
Just like we planned it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, if anybody has any questions or wants some more information, you can reach out to myself or Jesse or your local ATS office or your ATS account manager or rep, and we'll get back to you pretty promptly here. But again, thank you everybody for your time. It will be posted up on our YouTube channel if you want to share that internally. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Hope you found it valuable.
Thank you, everybody.